It's on the house.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
See you.
I can't. The camera on the Zoom panel is perfectly fine.
Camera's on.
Yeah.
Okay.
All set. Okay, so Mike, if you could join us, that would be great. And Mike, you have, you're gonna get hooked in as well? You are hooked in. There you are. So, much like I said to the chief yesterday, I'm sure you know more about us than we know about each other at this point in time. So, but we still will go around the room to introduce ourselves. It's Tom Stevens from Waterbury.
Rex Audioma from Lamoille, Washington.
Ashley Bartley, Fairfax.
Caleb Elder, Starksboro.
Dennis LeBounty, Lindenville.
Elizabeth Burrows, West Windsor.
Larry Legret, Essex Orleans.
Mary Howard, Rutland City.
Well, nice to meet you all. I do tend to forget where you're from sometimes, so it's good to hear. Mike Ferrant, Director of Operations, Office of Legislative Operations. And you weren't wrong, as much as a lot's happened since we were part of Ledge Council, and I'll start with that. So prior to 2020, the infamous year, Operations was part of the big Office of Legislative Council. And it was spelled with a CIL back then, as in a council of things. And legislative IT was also in Ledge Council, and they just kind of grew up in that office as time went on. And in 2019, we started to talk about restructuring the staff offices of the General Assembly. And those continued on through 2020. And then, of course, as you all know, March 13th happened, and the world went upside down, and we all scattered, but that process kept happening. And on the last day, one of the last bills passed in that long session of 2020 was a staff restructuring bill that broke the operations component and the IT component out of Ledge Council. It also created the Joint Legislative Management Committee, which has oversight over all legislative staff offices. And it created the Office of Legislative Human Resources, which we had never had before. And so all of those things happened in one fell swoop. The whole office changed, and no one really knew about it because we were all remote. We were all in Zoom at home in the middle of a pandemic. And so we've been establishing ourselves as separate coordinating entities since then. But it is very typical and very normal and very understandable for members who have been here for a long time to think about Ledge Operations, Ledge IT, Human Resources, all under that Ledge Council umbrella. And that's why, because that's how it was for years and years and years. So a little bit about me, and then I'm going to share my screen and talk about our office. So I lived in Lindenville for 18 years or so. Well, yeah, 17 years. And went to college there and got a job here in the central Vermont area, moved to Barrie, and now live in Moynihan Sound, and work here, obviously. I'm going to share my screen and talk about our office, if you could follow along. Can everyone see that? Okay. All right. So, this is your General Assembly website, and this, staff and offices, will lay out all of the different staff offices in case you're ever curious to find out who we all are. Every staff office has a website. They're all structured very similarly like this. A lot of them will start off with our legislative charge. And so that bill that broke us off into our own group charged the Office of Legislative Operations with serving the members and employees of the General Assembly with nonpartisan, operational, financial, committee support, and other administrative services, and supports the Joint Legislative Management Committee. So very intentionally vague. Administrative support, operational support, those things are very difficult to define. but you know what they are and you know what they mean, right? I don't provide legal support. I will not give you legal advice if you don't want my legal advice. I won't give you financial support if you don't want that either. But we do process your payroll. We do all of your payroll. We do timesheet approval for 55 employees of the General Assembly every 2 weeks. And we process all 180 members' expense reports each week and throughout the off session. And we support you through that, right? That is where our financial support, well, no, I shouldn't say that. That's where the financial support of the General Assembly, what you see, happens. We also do accounts payable and receivable for the entire branch of government. And so we have an operations coordinator. Some of you who have been around for a while know Charlene Dindo, and she's been here a long time. And she pays all of the bills for the General Assembly. She's part of our team as well. So, and then the other part of our team is the committee services team, which we have an administrative team, Lindsay Schreier and Charlene Dindo. We do the payroll, expenses, accounts payable, receivable, and administrative support for all of you. And then we have the committee services team, which is led by Peggy Delaney, supervisor of committee services, and includes all of the committee assistants that staff the standing committees of the legislature. Our staff don't support the money committees of the General Assembly. So House and Senate Appropriations and House Ways and Means, those are staffed by the Joint Fiscal Office because they're so tied to the JFO office and the JFO staff. They're made more sense. So that's who we are. This is our staff layout. These are all hyperlinks to those committee assistants' email addresses in case you ever wanted or needed to reach out to them. And then all of our names are all hyperlinks to our email addresses. Any questions about our organization and our office and who's in it and what we do? Excellent. The new folks will remember this too. Part of my job, our job as well, is we actually hire you as state employees, and that's how your payroll and your expenses are processed. And with a turnover like this year's, that was really challenging to hire 62 people. We actually technically terminate the employment of people that don't return. And so there was a lot of action in the VTHR system throughout December to make both of those things happen following the election. And I thank you all for doing everything that you did for that. It was a lot of work, but thank you. I want to share something that I've shared with our new members. And I've spread out and I've sent links to all members of the General Assembly, but I do understand if some of our existing returning members haven't had a chance to check it out yet. So I wanted to kind of do a little show and tell of something new that we've been working on. This is a SharePoint site, and it's specifically, I am the owner and creator of it, and it is user authenticated. In other words, you have to log in to see it, and it's only available to legislators and select legislative staff. And it's meant to be a resource center for you. All it is a collection of hyperlinks to publicly available websites, but it's all in one piece, one place, instead of all over the place, which is where they are. It's a collection of hyperlinks that will hopefully help you in your day-to-day lives. And so there's three major components to this SharePoint. There's operational and administrative resources. Now, I'm going to go through that a little bit more in detail today. There's payroll resources site, and then there's expenses resources site. And I broke them up because they're very different things, all three of them. So we'll start with the expenses resource site. And if you clicked on that, it would take you in to this site, and you would find your 2023 legislative user guide. And these are all just click links. And they work on iPads, phones, whatever. So you click on that, it just brings you right to what you all see spread out on every table of the legislative lounge, and that is your how to do your expenses every week, right? Don't use your iPad, your username, password, all that stuff. So it's just meant to be right there and easy for you. If you wanted to find out during the adjournment, we have different ways of doing expenses, and so that resource is there for you as well. Logging into your favorite Vision system to do your expenses, there's a link right there for that. If you wanted to find out how you get your rates, how those $69 a day is figured and all that, those are all based on the federal GSA, Government Services Administration, I think. But they're the per diem rates for Montpelier. And so as you look through those rates, you'll see, well, that's for 2021, but it's for 2023. I have to fix that. My bad. But it would take you to the current rates, and that's where we get that $134 for lodging, $69 for food is from the federal GSA, and that's in accordance with the statute that determines your pay. There's a memo, that's just a copy of the memo that I sent to all of you, and it just talks about how much you get paid, and it cites the reference for that. Which one is it? 32 VSA 1052B. And so that's where you can find out the statute that talks about your pay. So, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just had a little question, Mike. We passed something, I'm vaguely remembering from last year, that basically said that legislative pay will increase at the same rate as other constitutional officers, I think, something like that.
We did, yep.
And so that change, though, does not apply to the 69 and the 134 because those you're just going off the table you showed us. It just applies to the 811. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay.
Yep. And so that's your salary, your payroll, and that is different than your expense.
And so the way that 811 went up from last year, was that related to the change that we made?
Yep. I'd have to look at the wording of that statute again, but I believe it was elected officials in Vermont.
Okay.
Your salary would increase at the same rate as theirs. And last year, they received a 4.9% increase. It might have been exempt officials in Vermont, which is, we're exempt staff as well.
Right.
So you would have gotten that 4.9% and that equaled your current salary.
And that's a little different from how it would have worked in the past biennium moving in, right?
Yeah, the way I understand previous biennium's pay raises is each time that the General Assembly felt they needed a raise, they had to go through and do a whole new bill on the floor during that year. Not everyone voted on it from this dollar amount to that dollar amount, something along those lines. And from what I've heard, it's very uncomfortable.
Yeah. So this is more automated.
Yeah, this will follow that, whatever percentage they get, you get
Thanks.
in the future. Yes.
Why is it the meals is taxable and the travel isn't?
So I would always refer to Ledge Counsel for the answer to that. Abby Shepherd is the legislative counsel who takes care, who supports finance and taxes and things like that. Her and I had deep conversations about this. And so in 2000, I'll do my best to summarize, but this is not the official thing. In 2018, the IRS changed the tax code for legislators and their expense reimbursements nationwide. And basically said, it used to be that if you lived more than 50 miles away, your expenses weren't taxable. And if you lived within a 50-mile bubble, they were taxable. And that changed in 2018. And from what Abby reports and from what I understand, it is because the per diem, the $69, isn't accountable to how much you actually spend per day on food. It's just a per diem number that you get. And so it's subject to tax withholding like income because it's not, it doesn't tie to any real number. Your mileage does because you enter in 50 miles or 51 miles, it charges it to that 65.5-cent rate and it generates an accountable number that is tied to a real thing. So that's not subject to tax withholding. It's a reimbursement.
Now, when, I'm sorry, now when gas prices go up, is that how the mileage rate goes up? Or does that fluctuate at all during the year?
I would have nothing to do with that. That would all be the federal GSA. We tie everything back to that federal agency. So if gas prices nationally go up, they may make that decision based on that, and then that would trickle down and impact us.
It's up 7 cents from last year, just for comparison. But I don't know how gas factors into it. Last year was 58.5, so.
And there may be a year lag.
Right.
Oh, I was just gonna say, that I was looking last night at bills that are being introduced, and there is one this year, discussing that as well, so.
Oh, yes, from Representative Harrison.
Right.
Yeah, looking at doing an either or approach where you
Right.
can either have it be accountable and non-taxed or unaccountable and taxed.
More to come, I guess.
So these are all the resources that you can find out information like that from. I include a little countdown timer to Friday at 5 a.m. just so everyone knows how much further we have until you can do your expenses again. If we go back home, the payroll resource center is very similar in the format of it. This is all about your payroll, your salary, right? And so how to retrieve your pay stub. If you wanted to look at your pay stubs, you always can. What the pay stub looks like, because they're not pretty standard. They're very confusing looking, and understanding my paycheck is a link to the Vermont Human Resources site that actually says what all of the little numbers correspond to. If it's your first time logging in, this is a guide on how to do that. And new members, most have already done that first time login because we had to set up your direct deposit, right? And anytime you want to change your direct deposit or your tax withholding, you can always go through that VTHR portal.
Mike, I know that most people log in for their expenses first thing Friday morning.
Yeah.
If we don't, how much lag time is there before we screw up your system by logging our expenses late?
It's a good question because there is an answer. I hate it, but there is an answer, and the answer is May 1st. If you waited all the way until May 1st to do all of your legislative expenses, technically you could do that, and you would get one big expense. The problem is that and I want to say this very clearly, your expenses are paid out of Vision, which is a product of the Department of Finance and Management. Your payroll is paid from DHR, Department of Human Resources, and their system. And so your expenses, you'll notice, have no taxes withheld from them. You just get all of that money. If you put $1,000 of expenses in to your system, you get that full 1,000. But then Vision communicates with payroll and says the next time that person has a paycheck, withhold that $1,000 worth of withholdings based on their W-4 withholding schedule. You have to have a paycheck to withhold the taxes from. If you wait until after May to do all of your expenses, you'll run out of paychecks to withhold those taxes from. And that creates a very unfortunate situation where my office actually covers your tax liability. And then I send you memos and call you all summer. And I don't want to do that. That's why we try to keep people on that Friday schedule so that there's always that paycheck to withhold those taxes from. And that's why in May, we start just paying you 3 days a week until adjournment. One, because we can only pay you for the amount of days in session and we never know when adjournment's going to come. So we just kind of do this waiting game of, okay, pay him 3 days a week, pay him 2 days a week, pay him 3 days a week. And we do that to keep paychecks coming to withhold those taxes from those expenses.
Okay.
Took me 3 years to fully understand that. Yeah.
So, thank you for all your help over the years on me calling and saying whatever I've said about getting into expenses in particular, but I rarely ever visit the human resource user portal. When I go to it, is it the same sign in and the same password, or do I need to set up a whole different thing? Because I said sometimes it automatically fills into whatever my employee numbers.
Mhm.
But again,
It is a different credential. And if you've never been to it, you have a temporary password that you have to change as soon as you log in the first time. If you have a password and forgot it, you can forget password or call their help desk and they'll help you out. The two systems look very similar. And when you log into them, it almost feels like you're going in through the same thing. They're both supported by the same company, Oracle. They're both very antiquated and they're both big databases. They're not meant to enter expense reports into. The Vision system is what all state budgets are fed into. And all of the accounts payable, receivable for the entire state are done through Vision. So that's the real purpose for Vision. And then someone along the line said, well, we can do expense reports through this too. And so that's the reason that you have to do it through the expense reports. And that's why that user experience is so miserable doing your expense reports, because it's just a big database. It's not user friendly at all.
But so when I do go and set up new credentials, then I can actually change the W-4 or whatever
Yep.
at any time.
Yes, correct. So the only caveat to that statement, you could review your pay stub. You could change your W-4 tax withholding at any time throughout the session. If you start seeing too much taken out of a paycheck, you can adjust it in there. The only thing you can't do all the time is change your direct deposit. And that's because it's tied to your bank account and it has to be done over a secure network. So you do have to be here in the State House or on a state network to change or adjust your direct deposit, which also presented a lot of challenges for the new members over the Christmas vacation because they were all at home on Wi-Fi.
Sure.
And so we developed a solution for that, and I met with the 52 Zoom meetings with all of them over the Christmas vacation to set up direct deposit. Yeah. Lots of fun.
How I spent my Christmas vacation.
Zoom meetings with new legislators. Again, your pay and expenses memo is in here. Your direct deposit, again, can only be adjusted from a state of Vermont network. If you need to update your emergency contact form, because we maintain those in our office, and we have a big master sheet of everyone. That's just a form you can just click it, fill it out, you could email it or pink mail it straight to us, and we'll update your information. That way, if you get hurt here and you're on your way to the hospital, we can call someone and let them know where you're headed, so they don't worry. And like I said, this is all just hyperlinks that you all can access anywhere, but it's just a collection of them. So your payroll and expenses resources are there. Anytime you need to go back and review that information, you can. It's right there for you at your fingertips 24/7.
So Mike, and you don't have to go back to that page, but we had Chief Romei in yesterday, and he showed us a slide of a legislator's license plate, and he belittled it and didn't know why we would possibly want to be such a target. And I noticed that you had license plate forms on there. So if someone like me who has a legislative license plate wanted to change and go back to just having a normal license plate, is that the form I would use?
No, you would just go through the Department of Motor Vehicles, through the DMV. That form is just it's what they gave us for new legislators, or if people wanted to get a new legislative license plate, that's the form that they would fill out with us and we would submit to them. But really, it's all through the DMV, so I would encourage you to just contact their office. Yeah, I did hear Chief's opinion of the legislative license plates, and I understand where he's coming from. At the same time, I would understand why somebody would be proud to drive around with that on. I've driven down the highway and seen, House 26, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Wonder who that is.
I'm gonna pass
on the phone while I'm driving.
I'm gonna look at the mean mug real quick. How fast are they going now?
I want the easy access list of the administration officials' license plates.
That would be nice, right? Yeah.
I kept my legislative license plate on. I still do, but plus I have a really bright red car that the license plate is on, so it's really good for my teenagers to learn how to drive on a Target car.
I like that. Nice.
They never got a ticket.
Yeah.
Did the other get pulled over?
No.
And so the next one I want to show you that I've worked really hard on is the operational and administrative resources site, because I want this to be interactive, and my real hope is that this becomes really a good resource site for you all to get your legislative work done quickly, efficiently, and effectively. So I have something fun coming soon, hopefully at the end of this week, where you would go to a website, click in some quick information, and thank somebody for coming into the State House and making a difference. So, and then we would be able to instantly put it on letterhead and email it right back to you, or print it off and have the page bring it to you. So that's coming soon, as soon as it's done. But some of the things on here, so another quick link to the staff offices. If you just click that, it brings you to a nice directory of all of our offices. In case you need to get in touch with the Legislative Council, IT, JFO, Sergeant at Arms, things like that. We have lobbyist information. Click on that link and it brings you to the Secretary of State's office. lobbyist information site where you can see their registration, their employer, their lobbying firm, search by lobbyist. They do have a photo book of lobbyists that is being updated as we speak for the 2023-2024 biennium. How many lobbyists there are and things like that. And what I've said to our new members as I've watched them through this in our Zoom meetings is, it's not that being a lobbyist is a good or bad thing. You work with them all day. You see them all the time. But knowing who they are and who they work for, I think would be important if you're working on a bill with one of them.
Yeah.
So this is just a good resource site to find that information out. The biography book from last biennium. So all of the members, we print this every biennium, and we'll be doing that again at the end of this month, early next month. You all got an email from me last night about your biographies, right? And so we do portraits that Wayne Fabish took last week, and we tie them up with biographies, and we print a book. And it's very popular. People really like it. And so we'll be doing that again. This is a digital version of last bienniums, in case you wanted to check up on anybody. It is a big file, so I'm not going to open it here because it'll take forever. But I just wanted to let you know. Here's my pride and joy this session so far. This is an interactive State House map. And I have printouts downstairs as well. But with all of the movement around of this place, it really became apparent that people needed to know where things were. Committee rooms, staff offices, things like that. And so this was meant to be just that, a map. The Senate committee rooms are in green. The House committee rooms are in orange. And the staff offices are in blue. And these are all hyperlinked to those committee websites. So if I was coming to give testimony in House General, I would need to know where House General is. There it is in room 31. And I'd say, okay, there's the G card room. There's the House chamber. There's that little weird hall. Okay. And when I click on that box, it takes me right to your legislative website, which has all of your members right there, your committee assistant, your live stream. I won't do that because we might enter a new parallel universe if we looked at it while we were doing it, but just a really nice resource for where it is and how to find it. The staff offices similarly go to those legislative staff websites. So if you needed to reach out to Betsy Ann and the clerk of the House or get one of their resources, it's right there. The cafeteria, if your belly's rumbling and you want to know what's up for lunch or how much it's going to cost, their menu and price list is right there. If you find yourself needing e-help, so the e-help desk is right there, that IT desk. If you click on this e-help hyperlink, it'll actually, it won't work now because it opens up an email. It didn't share that screen, but it would open up a new email to e-help from you. That didn't share for some reason. Just to prove I'm not lying. So it already automatically formats that email for you.
Mike, where's the infirmary?
We do not have an infirmary anymore. The infirmary has been turned into a single-use bathroom. And there's a single-use bathroom where the infirmary used to be, and then on the other side of it is a lactation center, a lactation room.
Where?
Right here in this general area. The custodian closet is back here. Copy room, again, if you click that link, it'll open up a new email from you to the copy room. If you needed to print something or make copies or something like that, it would be an easy way to do that. And so that's really meant for not just new members, but returning members too. There's a link to JFO, picture of the pink lady there, and a link to the HR office, which if you don't know is over in the, what they call the green lady, the building down directly that way by the tax department. Other resources in this site. And these all work very well from an iPad or cell phone too, if you want. So I have some letterhead up here in case you were in the middle of committee, you're thinking about something, you got to write somebody a letter. You just click on House of Reps letterhead. It generates a Microsoft Word document, all formatted for a letter or a memo, I believe this is. And so you type all of your things in, you fill in all the blanks, and when you go to print it, it will be all formatted with the state seal on the background, House of Representatives, looking all very official for you.
When would we use General Assembly versus House of Representatives? if we were co-writing a letter with a senator.
Yeah, I would say that would be the appropriate time to do that. Yep. Or if you just want to, if you want to say General Assembly instead of House of Representatives for whatever reason, thanks for coming to the State House. Maybe somebody does a card room event and you want to thank them for it, you could do it that way.
And so
General Assembly.
that's gonna come up, and then when we do the print, we need to make sure that we have the drivers.
Yeah.
I still have to talk to the person to make sure the drivers are in my computer or phone.
You could also print the PDF and that'll kind of create the PDF document. You save it to your desktop or something, and then you can email it off or email it down to the copy room. Use your little map there and email the copy room. Can you print these off for me or something like that? Let's see. We have,
Yeah, do you have anything on parking and like a parking map on that site?
no, that's a good idea. We could put that up, the parking map. Yeah, I think that'd be a great thing. This is for you. Anytime you have an idea of something that might be helpful to everyone up here, just like that, shoot me an email. Hey, Mike, SharePoint could use the parking map. I can put it right up on here. It's very easy to do. What I don't want to do is cover this with noise that no one will, that's too hard to find stuff. There's just too much on there, but parking map's a good one.
With interactive parking maps so we can click on a space and reserve it.
Now you're talking my language. Google Maps in the sky or something like that.
And I have an app where I can get a parking spot anywhere in Boston in advance.
Yeah.
If I know how to get there.
There you go. There you go.
Great.
A state telephone directory. So some people don't know about this, but if you needed to reach out to a state, an executive branch official, but you don't know who, if you know their name, you can type it in here to get their contact information. But there's also this agencies and departments tab. And if you needed to reach somebody from the Housing and Community Development Department, Department of Housing and Community Development, when you click on just search and leave it blank like that, now some of this might be outdated and that's not my fault, but it would bring you to, from the commissioner, deputy commissioner, executive assistant, their contact information, their program divisions down there. It's at least a starting point to making contact with somebody that you might not have the contact information for. Right. And another link to the food court. This one I really don't like, but it's the executive branch org chart. It's just too small. But if you wanted to, you could play around with it and reformat it. It's literally if I can bring it all up and rotate it for you. I can't do that in this, but you would be able to do it if you saved it. But it's how the whole executive branch is formatted, what departments fall under what agencies and who reports to who, and things of that nature. It has us and it's not right, but that's okay. They publish this every year, and so when this year's one comes out, I will be sure to update it on here.
With people's names or just their positions?
So again,
With people's names or just their positions?
no, it's just the agencies and sub-agencies and departments. And that is our resource center. Something that we're always working on for you, yes.
Did you tell us how to log into it?
Yes, you have a link in your email, but I'll send another one out
That's great.
this Friday morning for
That's great.
in my expenses reminder.
I don't have to ask publicly, but maybe others are interested. And someone asked me today about the business card update.
Mm-hmm. We don't have an update on, well, so we had a company that used to print business cards for us, and it was a very good rate. And they went out of business over the pandemic, and we did not know that until Charlene tried to get some of these business cards printed at new member orientation and found out that they were no longer in business. It's just something we hadn't even thought about until new members came. So we're still looking for something. Tony in the copy room is not a very viable solution for 180 people to get multiple big counts of business cards from. And we are actively still looking into what kind of resources we can use for that. BGS Print Shop is a possibility, but they also support the entire state government business card. So I'm not sure how that's going to work out. I know Charlene is still actively working on it. In the meantime, you can always use a thing like Staples or something like that. It's not ideal, but it is a viable option in the meantime.
Okay. What is it that we can do to make your life really bad?
Really bad? Wait until May to do your expenses. I wouldn't say bad. I mean, so, you know, we some of the challenges we've dealt with in the past are members and how they treat committee assistants from time to time, professional, unprofessional, pushing boundaries of what they are here to do and what they're not here to do. And not understanding when we've asked people to correct that, not really understanding or pushing back on that. It creates a very difficult situation when a member is asking a committee assistant to do something that their supervisor, Peggy, has specifically told them not to do. And so those things pop up from time to time. And we try to handle them as graciously and as quickly as we can, but sometimes they snowball into a bigger deal. And so that's happened from time to time. Members' expenses being late. The only reason that that's a real headache is because, like I said, it can create that tax liability issue. And then we're communicating over the summer. And I don't mind doing that, but I always feel bad for the people I'm trying to, and sometimes it's like, you have to send me a check for $5.25, you know, and just, I know it's the last thing people want to do. And so just constantly kind of barraging them all summer with that reminders is unfortunate and not something I like to do. I don't know what else you could do. You could have another pandemic and make us all go back. Remotely. That wasn't very fun. I didn't like that very much.
Yes.
Ron?
I was just about to ask, thank you.
Captions.
So the captions, oh, thank you. I wish I could share. We worked last year very hard on enhancing our accessibility. One of the things that we worked on really hard was incorporating American Sign Language into committee hearings and House proceedings when needed. And so that was a big lift. For one, we don't have anyone dedicated to do that here. No one's job description is to do that. So Kevin and I kind of took it on. Kevin Moore and I took it on, and then I became the unofficial, unappointed coordinator of accessibility services in Zoom here. And so that became very successful and it worked out really well. We were able to help the House Healthcare Committee pass out a bill about hearing aids and being covered by Medicare. And then we were actually able to do it on the House floor as well. It's the first time that's ever been done. We used Zoom. We had the person in Zoom doing sign language and it was really, really interesting. At the same time, we did an enhanced captioning service because when we came back to the State House last year, we had the Zoom captions on. And you'll remember that it's an artificial intelligence that's trying to pick up what everyone's saying and then put it into captions in real time on the screen. It was horribly inaccurate. I think like 60-something%, maybe low 70s% inaccurate. And it was inaccurate in very weird ways. Senator McDonald was on committee talking about the doctor of death. And he wasn't talking about that, but that's what the caption looked like he was talking about, was the doctor of death. And he was very passionate about it. And if you muted it and watched it, it looked like he was a really, doing a bad thing, but he wasn't. And then everyone had masks on, which further complicated the issue. But people that couldn't hear, hearing impaired, couldn't read lips because of the masks. And then the masks were muffling the voices. And it became a very unattainable situation. So we got our heads together and we looked around and we realized that there was a state contract in existence for enhanced, what they call CART services. And that is somebody typing in real time. They're in the Zoom meeting and they are typing the captions in real time as the meeting goes on. It is expensive. It does cost money. It is a little delayed. because the person's listening and typing at the same time. There is an inaccuracy component to it. And we can't get those captions embedded in the Zoom meeting. We just can't technologically figure that part out yet. So they go to a different website. So you have to kind of have a different website's little window open along with your Zoom window, along with your YouTube if you're doing it. And it doesn't make for the best user experience, but it is better than the Zoom AI captioning. What's better than the Zoom AI captioning, less work and free, is YouTube will do captioning as well. It does take a day. It's a day delayed. So tomorrow you could watch this meeting on YouTube and turn the captions on. And it would be more accurate, much more accurate than the Zoom real-time captioning. And it is delayed, but it is another way to do it. The thing we discovered too with the Zoom captioning was we were embedding those captions in the YouTube video because they were in Zoom. So they were always making it to YouTube as well, which is now our official archive of those meetings with state archives. So 50 years from now, if someone's making a movie about poor Senator McDonald and they go to that video as a montage of his greatness and he's screaming about the doctor of death, it's really going to be an unfortunate situation because we can't undo that. So we did stop and cease doing those. Yes.
Is the enhanced cart services something that has to be requested?
It is. And our website now has an accessibility link and a very easy form to fill out to request those. And those requests will come to me. It does require some notice because we have to request it from them and then have them set it up. It's a contract through T-Mobile, actually. And so they require from us 24 hours notice. And so we put on the thing that we need it within 27 hours notice. The ASL, if you want a sign language, that takes 48 hours notice.
So if it were an ongoing thing, would someone have to request it for every hearing or can it be established as ongoing?
I think it would have to be requested each time because we have to request it each time as well. And it has to be tied to a person that's requesting it as well.
And what about a legislator? So if that was if a legislator needed that, just or.
If a legislator needed the enhanced captioning services.
Or some sort of other.
Or ASL.
Yeah.
I believe, yeah, you would just do the request through us and we would reach out to Van Crow, which is the company that we request those services from and then find a solution from them. I don't know how that would work though.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of troubling. On it, just in general.
I know they charge us by the hour.
Yeah, it wasn't the, I served on healthcare last year and my understanding was that those 2 days of interpretation blew through the entire budget for ASL services, isn't that right?
We don't have an established budget for these services at all in the legislature. There is no budget item that I know of that ties a dollar amount to this. So, but it is very expensive and it adds up very quickly. I do know that.
I think one of the things with Zoom that I noticed, I don't know how you felt in this office, but for being on artificial intelligence, it never learned. Like it never, you'd think that if the same word were being used again and again and again over the course of time, that it tied into this account would learn people's names or, that Middlesex is one word. And it never did. And I think that was the big problem is that it just never improved at all.
Yeah, and the debate over Essex Junction versus Essex City, I think wreaked havoc on us with the captions on, with the inaccuracy of it all. And then Kevin Moore can talk more to this, but we're broadcasting everything to YouTube, to a friendly family part of YouTube. And so they have standards. And so if we start violating those standards with inappropriate, inaccurate captions, they can technically threaten and take away our licenses to broadcast our meetings. I guess we'd be in 2019 if we did that, if that happened.
No, we worked hard at getting the
We did.
Zoom captioning going. It was a battle just because everything with Zoom is evolutionary in our work here because it didn't exist 2 years ago now. So we're making do, I guess but if it does happen to improve, you'll at least be aware of that. Sorry.
So I'm a person who needs closed captioning, but I don't want the expense of like an additional, that's bizarre. Would it be possible? I'm okay with the 60% thing for myself. So if I logged in on my iPad to Zoom and added closed captionings for myself, is that a possibility or would it translate to that? Because when I'm on Zoom at home, I can click closed captioning and it will come on. So is that a thing or does that not work because you can't have it on because it's not part of this system?
That's a good question. We'd have to ask our IT team that
Okay.
question. They're much more in tune with
I don't
that.
I think closed captioning is turned off in the individual, well, it's turned off for all of us right now, but
Right, right.
when we had it on, I don't think the individual user could turn it off, could hide it.
Mhm.
But I don't think they could enable it. That's my memory.
Yeah, I'd have to research
The host
that.
had to either enable it,
Right,
and then it was everybody,
right,
and it did go on.
right. And what Ron's referencing is we had all the committee assistants enable and activated on theirs because their screen is what becomes the
Yes.
YouTube video.
And that even if we hid it, so I didn't have to look at it.
Yeah.
It was still going on.
Oh, got you. Okay.
Yeah, I'd recommend talking to Kevin in the IT department.
Okay.
All right, anything else for Ms. Representative Howard?
I would just like to say that Mike and his department have been extremely helpful. Mike helped me today.
You're only saying that because I helped you to.
But through the years, you or someone from your department has helped me. And they have been most accommodating, very polite, just the nicest people. So thank you and thank your staff, please.
I will. Thank you very much for that. We strive to be professional, nonpartisan, and helpful. And I take the approach that I should be creating a common operating picture for all of you. Something that you can all see, resources that you can use, and that's what that SharePoint is attempting to be, is a common place that you can go to and get lots of different help.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
As a reminder, Ron,
See you
we
Friday.
have IT in as well if we need to.
Yep, now I had that